Well, the book has 40 true stories. So, first of all, I just tell what I saw, what happened, so people understand the circumstances. Following each story, and some of them are just amazing, is a devotion that takes a faith lesson that I learned from this adoption situation. So, and it has a Bible verse for every single story that I have. God, it has a devotion. Then I follow it up. It's all well and good to get the information, but then what do you do with it? So I have a section that's called Baby Steps to Grow Your Faith. So whatever the faith lesson was that I learned from that circumstance, I give questions that kind of point people, here's the path that you can start walking or things that you can do to reach this lesson that you have learned from the story. And it's amazing, some of the things that I've seen.
Well, let's talk about the big picture, the premise here. God adopted us first. I mean, that seems to be the driving element, really, of what you're presenting here. So what does the scripture have to say about our relationship with God? The Bible speaks in Galatians about a spirit of adoption. So how does that work? How do you see that as applicable to our relationship with God?
Well, we are adopted into sonship, which means we are heirs. We are part of his family. So if you look at, and that's why I think people that don't understand the spiritual aspect necessarily, if they can step from what's happening here on earth up a step, it's like if you've seen an adoption, people love that child or that baby as if it's their very own. It doesn't matter if there's a blood relationship, but there's a choice there to become and make a family. And that's what God's done. He's given us a choice to become a part of his family and be his heirs and be available to have what he has for us. So, and it's very biblical. If you look in the Bible, adoption's sprinkled through it. I mean, Moses was adopted by Pharaoh's daughter, and he got trained in leadership and government, because how are you going to get millions of Israelites through the desert if you don't have that? So God had a plan with that adoption. And Esther was adopted by her cousin. She was an orphan, and he raised her, and she ended up being the queen that saved her people. And then you turn to the New Testament, Joseph was Jesus' stepfather. He was his earthly father. So that was an effective adoption. He treated him like a son. He taught him to be a carpenter. So if we understand it's a choice, and families are created different ways, but this is how God chose to make his family. And we can make choices here to adopt. So I think it helps the building block, because you can see what happens here in the real world and then see, oh, that's what God does. We're a part of his family, and he loves us just as much as an actual child. So I think that's just wonderful that people can see that.
As you put together these stories in this book, God Adopted Us First, did you find that there were maybe some common threads, some common themes of these stories that you were able to actually make into the principles that you were sharing?
There's a lot of different things that I found in them, but God was always there, and he was in control of the circumstances. Adoptions, the attorney I worked with said there's never a cookie cutter adoption, meaning no two are the same, because you're dealing with individuals and circumstances. But no matter what the circumstances were, God's hand was in it somehow, either through the people or the timing, but you saw God there everywhere. And he was teaching lessons, love, trust, things like that. So a lot of different circumstances, but they all involve God and his hand and control on the situation.